So if, and you pretty much get the same information. You go through these different scholars. They saying on his father's side, that's where they saying African, but the so-called Negro, so-called black man of the black lineage it's on his father's side. So that would have made him a Judah from the tribe of Judah.
Yeah, I got to appreciate it.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
This is Genesis 49:8, and it reads, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thy enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee.
Con. So wait, read it one more time, brother.
Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise.
Right, and that's kind of the example, because the brother looked up, Issachar looked up to him, and if you go through the history, we ain't gotta go into it today. But basically, he was skillful in war, because he was the general. So he headed Issachar in going to war against the so-called white man. And they had tails, like I said, they had tails in there. They had the white man fighting too in the war, but he was the head, so-called black man. But ultimately, the scripture, is going into the Most High gonna make it known, and He's making it known through examples like this, and ultimately that Judah is the head tribe, and ultimately that Yahushua of the tribe of Judah is the head. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thy hand shall be in the neck of thy enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee.
Keep going, brother. Okay, read on down.
Judah is a lion's whelp.
And it's saying, and also, it's saying that basically Judah is gonna get at the so-called white man. The Most High gonna put the spirit on Jake to basically want to kill the so-called white man, and they gonna do it according to prophecy. Go ahead, brother.
From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, and as a old lion, who shall rouse him up?
That's the point I wanted to get. Who shall rouse him up? Because Jake is the head tribe, so when Jake get roused up, the other tribes gonna follow suit, just like they followed Guerrero. Because you had Gad, Issachar, and some Reubenites was in Texas, man, and at that time fighting, like the brother was going to, and there was tares in there. Of course, the Spaniards had ruled in that land, so they spread seed, but for the most part, it was Israel versus Edom, and it was Jake that once Jake get roused up, the other nations they come on in,
The other tribes.
The other tribes, yeah. So that's what you're gonna see in these last days, man. When the grand stage is set, when the Most High, make his final chess move on these devils, man, that's why I said, who shall rouse Jake? Jake is a couching lion right now, man.
And the reason the Most High ain't let it happen back then, because Jake was going off. Jake was trying to rise up against the and then they was indoctrinated, and they was bugged out, So even if Jake, the Most High, it wasn't time for Jake to be on top as a nation. Israel to basically conquer the white man. We're in that time now. But you had different revolts that took place, and we just focusing on this deal with Guerrero, but we leading up to this devil. All right, check it out. Now I'm gonna show this portrait or this picture that I found. And this is that guy, Guerrero. And you can clearly see that that's a so-called black man, but
with his beard,
right? Yeah, woolly. Where he had the little booty on the chin, but but basically you can see he have an afro. And then if you find all the other pictures, you look through the scholars telling you that he's mixed, basically pretty much predominantly so-called African. But you get all the pictures of them, they whitewashed them. They got them up looking like a Edomite. And it's very rare that you can find, I just Googled images, but out of all the images, I only find this is the only one. I'm pretty sure you probably can,
No, they whitewashed him.
Yeah, they whitewashed him. I said you might be able to find another picture they got of him as a black man, but I can only find one. Now, so what you had was Augustine you had Augustine sitting as emperor of Mexico for about 3 years, starting in 1821. For about 3 years, 4 years, because it say that. Well, let me go back and finish. Let me finish reading this because it tell you when Guerrero came into power. It says, I didn't finish it. It says, finally the government surrendered and Guerrero became president in April 1825.
Yeah, you brought it.
Oh, I brought it out. Salak. So basically, he was the white man was sitting as emperor over here. You know, I'm talking about outside of when Spain was over here, but the so-called Mexican independence for about 4 years, and then that's when the so-called black man came into power in Mexico. And now we gonna get into this nigga, not nigga, this cracker, Stephen F. Austin. I want you to go into this article first. Okay. You know, because basically what happened was, now that they had, I'm gonna brief you. Stephen F. Austin, father Moses Austin, he basically had signed impresarios, which is basically an entrepreneur or business contract to have the crackers that came out of, that was basically cast out of Great Britain, to coming over here to settle in the land of Mexico, or land of Texas, which was part of Mexico. So you had Moses Austin. Moses Austin. He was the father, and he started it, but he didn't get to. He died before he can get them crackers over here settling in the land. And the reason why the so-called white man, I'm just talking about the Spaniards, wanted the other group of Edomites to come over and settle in the land, was allow them through these contracts, these business contracts, was this brother gonna basically read it. This was the motto why, you know. But go ahead, brother.
It's titled Anglo-American Colonization. Anglo-American colonization in Mexican Texas took place between 1821 and 1835. Spain had first opened Texas to Anglo-Americans in 1820, less than 1 year before Mexico achieved its independence. Its traditional policy forbade foreigners in its territory, but Spain was unable to persuade its own citizens to move to remote and sparsely populated Texas.
So the reason why they allowed it to other white men to come over here from the Americas was is because they own indigenous. The indigenous people didn't want to leave their areas and populate the vast land. They wanted to just stay in where they was at. So they needed basically frontier protection, you know. From Gad. Oh, go ahead, bro.
No, you're right. They would do that to try to expand their empire, you know, because they would be under Spanish or subject to Spanish rule and pay. That's a way for Spain to collect new taxes. It was a economic move as well.
It's gonna go into it. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, bro.
There were only 3 settlements in the province of Texas in 1820: Nacogdoches, San Antonio de Bihar, and La Bahia del Espiritu Santo, later Goliad.
So it wasn't that many populated places here in Texas, and they like the brother went into, they wanted to basically populate, and the more population you have in a territory that's yours, the more it promotes economic growth.
Generate more revenues.
Small towns with outland ranches. The missions near the latter two, once expected to be the nucleus communities, had been or were being secularized, i.e. transferred to diocesan from Franciscan administration. While those near Nacogdoches had been closed since the 1770s, recruiting foreigners to develop the Spanish frontier was not new.
Right, so they recruited foreigners, the so-called white man, and they knew this white man was gonna bring slaves, you know. I just say this. Basically the so-called white man and the white man Esau, under saying they Americans, settlers, Puritans, and all that garbage, they brought Jake, you know, as slaves. But as frontiermen. It's gonna go into it, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
As early as the 1790s, Spain invited Anglo-Americans to settle in Upper Louisiana, Missouri, for the same reason.
Oh, I'm sorry, they don't go into it on that document. Because they had problems with Gad. Gad was steady going up and causing contention against the Spaniards. You know, against the Mexican government. So, you know, they wanted basically frontiersmen to basically fight against Gad if they try to cross the territory, for lack of better words. Or Gad was in the territory, but they was caught. So basically, if they crossed the territory and the ones in the land, you know, with their uproars to deal with Gad. So go ahead.
The foreigners were to be Catholic, industrious, and willing to become Spanish citizens in return for generous land grants. Spain expected the new settlers to increase economic development and help deter the aggressive and mobile plans Indians such as the Comanches and Kiowas.
Oh, it did go into it. Yeah, you can read that again. Read that part again.
Spain expected the new settlers to increase economic development.
The new settlers, through that impresario, which we gonna go into, so they can economic growth, right development, and frontiersmen against, and it's gonna name the tribes.
And help deter aggressive and mobile plans against Indians, such as the Comanches and Kiowas. Mexico continued the Spanish colonization plan after its independence in 1821 by granting contracts to impresarios who would settle and supervise selected qualified immigrants.
Right. So that's basically the start of this devil Stephen F. Austin coming over here. He was granted. Well, we gonna read it. This brother can read through it, and it's gonna explain it. You know.
What it was that
yeah, go ahead.
Moses Austin got his impresario from the Spanish government.
Right.
He died almost about the same time that the Issachar won their independence from Spain. But Moses Austin looked to his son to carry out that impresario.
Right.
But now it's a different government in place.
Right.
So the brother's gonna go into it.
Right. It's a different government in place, and like you got to remember that you still had the so-called white man that Augustine. He was ruling for a period. You know, for a period of time. So even when Stephen F. Austin went to confirm with his father set up that contract, he was still dealing with the Edomite, you know, just to throw that out there for a period of time. But go ahead, read it out.
Okay, do this part here.
Yeah, you can read that.
Impresario Austin. Austin's plan for a colony was thrown to turmoil by the independence of Mexico from Spain in 1821. Governor Martinez informed Austin that the Junta Insurgente, the new rump Congress of the government of Agustin de Iturbide of Mexico, refused to recognize the land grant authorized by Spain. Based on a new policy of using a general immigration law to regulate new settlement in Mexico, Austin traveled to Mexico and managed to persuade the Junta Insurgente to approve the grant to his father, as well as the law signed by the Mexican Emperor on January 3rd, 1823.
Right, and the Mexican emperor at that time, it was Augustine. So basically, he sought up a deal, conjured up a deal for him to get the land grant to come into get families to come into the land, Edomite families. Go ahead, brother.
The old imperial law offered heads of families a league and a labor of land, 4,605 acres, and other inducements. It also provided for the employment of agents, called impresarios, to promote immigration. As impresario, Austin himself was to receive 67,000 acres of land, for each 200 families he introduced. According to the law, immigrants were not required to pay fees to the government. This fact soon led some of the immigrants to deny Austin's rights to charge them for service at the rate of 12.5 cents an acre.
Again, just run through it, brother. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of reading, but
okay. When the Emperor of Mexico, Augustine de Iturbide, abdicated in March 1823, the law was annulled once again. In April 1823, Austin induced the Congress to grant him a contract to bring 300 families into Texas.
So it's telling you that he was having some little difficulty, and I ain't got the proof, but I guarantee you he was going. It was Guerrero. He had that friction with him and Guerrero, that guy Augustine. He had that friction going, so he was having trouble passing his land grant. So even though it took a little while for Austin to get that land grant from Augustine, and I believe that probably most likely was the reason for the delay. But go ahead.
He wanted honest, hard-working people who would make the colony a success. In 1824,
it wasn't honest, and the hard-working people, they wasn't honest. The so-called white man ain't honest. He's a liar. He's a devil. So basically, the hard workers would be the slaves they bring over. Yeah, honest and hard-working. Edomites didn't do no work. The Negroes they brought over did all the work. But go ahead.
In 1824, the Congress passed a new immigration law that allowed the individual states of Mexico to administer public lands and open them to settlement under certain conditions. In March 1825, the legislature of Mexican state of Coahuila y Tejas passed a similar law to the one authorized by Iturbide. The law continued the system of impresarios, as well as granting each married man a league of land, 4,428 acres, with the stipulation that he must pay the state $30 within 60 years. By the late 1825, Austin had brought the first 300 families to his settlement, the Austin Colony. These 300 are known in Texas history as the Old 300. Austin had obtained further contracts to settle an additional 900 families between 1825 to 1829. He had an effective civil and military authority.
All right, read that last part a little clearer. Just read from right here. Austin had that part.
Austin had obtained further contracts to settle an additional 900 families between 1825 and 1829.
All right, that's one too. So basically, that's the start. That's the starting point. Starting with this devil, Stephen F. Austin, of getting these crackers over here who would ultimately steal this land from Issachar, and they can dwell freely on this land. They didn't have to get green cards and go through all this paperwork to be classified as a citizen to dwell on this land. Basically, now they got to go through all this shit, and the white man is so fucking proud, and he got nerve enough to call them, tell them to go back home and look at the so-called Mexicans and all the Latin tribes, not just the Mexicans, as immigrants. You know?
And see what they say.
That lady down there in the white t-shirt. She said, "Will you watch me first?" And I said, "Sure."
Oh, that'd be cool. Thank you.
A las 5 que me levante. Y cuando llegue en una hora que me levante, ¿no?
You got whatever you got, brother.
I ain't got nothing.
Oh, okay. And I want to go. Basically, I'll read this article, and we kind of gonna get into basically the problems that the so-called white man started having Stephen F. Austin and all the crackers that he brought over here, when the government switched from the hand of the power of the government switched from Agustin Iturbide to Vicente Guerrero. When Guerrero came into power, at first it was pretty cool, but then when Guerrero came into power in 1825, then that's when he started pushing for rule and regulations on slavery and ultimately abolishing slavery. That was under the rule of Guerrero, a so-called black man. So I'm gonna read through this. It's kind of lengthy, but just bear with me.
I'll read it, bro.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah, all of it, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, this is entitled.
Hey, and that's how it is. Like you watching Brothers in Dallas. Sometimes when you're going through the information, it's a lot of reading involved, but that's what we need to be doing. You know, get into reading. You know.
Revelation 1 and 3.
Yeah, blessed.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing about researching, man, and digging for the truth. When the earth, I mean, Salakia, when the scriptures say that the earth shall help the woman, through the different, forms of sciences, man, archaeology for one. Archaeologists dig, and when you go into this knowledge, you got to dig, and that's real tedious, They sit there, they shake them pans,
And just the excavation, when they go through that excavation process, that's time consuming.
So this is entitled Mexican Texas. This is from Wikipedia, from an article, The History of Slavery in Texas. So I guess Mexican Texas is a subtitle of the article. And it says, in 1821, at the conclusion of the Mexican War of Independence, Texas was included in the new nation. That year, the American Stephen F. Austin was granted permission to bring Anglo settlers into Texas, which the true Anglos are Israelites. It said most of the settlers Austin recruited came from the southern slave-owning portions of the United States. Under Austin's development scheme, each settler was allowed to purchase an additional 50 acres of land for each slave he brought to the territory.